Well, good evening, everybody. Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of SCV Chat. As usual, let me get through this normal introduction before we begin introducing ourselves. The opinions and views expressed on this chat and any subsequent chats are not necessarily the views of the national organization, any division, brigade, or camp. They're the opinions of us, the host. So take them as you will. Here again with our normal group from the first week. AS is not going to be with us this week, but we got MDS with us. Of course, I'm GCB, and we've got the mysterious producer. So how's everybody doing this week?
MDS, you can go first.
It's been busy, man. We got a lot of things hopping and popping up at headquarters, so that's always a good thing.
Well, that is a good thing. I heard that we're getting a step closer and closer to getting that OC or CO, excuse me, so we can start moving stuff in.
Yeah, I saw some heavy equipment pulled up at Elm Springs today, so they'll be filling in the ponds soon, and then we'll get into some landscaping, and then we'll be in the museum. So,
well, Mr. Producer, how was your vacation? So to speak.
My vacation went well all the way up until the point where I had to start getting ready for work.
Well, you know, that was yesterday afternoon, so get over it.
Yeah. So like we did a great job getting together for the fact that everything that I had ready for the chat had just been strode across the room in a good game of hide and go seek, before we started. So I think we're going off pretty well, if I do say so myself.
Well, that is good. This week, I actually have the video stream up, so I'll be able to check somewhat and see who all we've got viewing us, if there are any questions in the comments and things like that. So my week this week has been, last week was pretty ordinary. Went to the General Executive Council retreat. The GEC is the body of men who are elected to represent the organization when we're not in convention assembled. Don't think we've mentioned that in the first episode, and of course there'll be more information on that later on. But every year when there's a new commander-in-chief, there is a retreat where the GEC members get together and they plan what they're going to do for 2 years. And it was a great load of fun. AS and I, we actually shared a cabin. So that's probably why he's not on this week. He had enough of my stuff this past weekend. It was, I can't spend another hour talking to him. But no. It was really good. I'm really looking forward to working with this GEC and seeing what we can do with the future of the Confederation and things like this. Would like to go ahead and say we did talk about the future of SCV Chat on the at the retreat. So that was very nice. Was able to explain what this is, and what we're doing, what our goals are for this channel, as well as how the ideas that the GEC members had for topics they thought would be interesting to hear. So that'll pan out some more in the future. The other thing that I was really excited to discuss with them is the plans that they have for Make Dixie Great Again. The SCV's plan to reclaim the narrative about not only Confederate history, but all of Southern history. We as Southerners have a proud history and have a lot to be proud of. And we're going to reclaim that history, and we're going to take it by the horns and really, make it something that we can all be proud of again. And part of that is SCV Chat, using that. So that's it. SCV News, anybody got anything?
What do you mean news from SCV?
I have, if I can get it pulled up real quick.
You hurry up and do your job.
But, we have 2 good executive orders come out this week, if I'm not mistaken. We have one that is, I think, the first executive order given to us by our new commander-in-chief, Mr. Larry McClooney. It is, if I'm not mistaken, is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, which will be August 15th. In that world, I would like to encourage everybody to go out and celebrate that. Our law enforcement in this country has do a great deal for us and have not gotten lots of thanks this year, and they go above and beyond the duty trying to protect us on the home front. So, and then I think the second executive order, which is something we'll get into tonight, is about, let's see here if I can find it. House Bill
7608.
And we'll kind of be talking about that later on tonight. We'll give you kind of a better, explaining of that. I'm pretty sure MDS can do it more justice than I can, so I'll let him take over.
We're definitely going to talk about that tonight. Go ahead.
I was going to say, before we jump into that, let's do our War Between the States question of the week. As usual, every week now, we are starting a question that will that is somewhat related to the topic that we're going to discuss. So, here's the question. What Confederate general was 26 years old when he assumed command of all cavalry in the Army of Tennessee? This man was wounded 3 times during the war, commanded the cavalry forces of the Army of Mississippi, and eventually served as a major general in the U.S. Army during the Spanish-American War.
The chat is catching up, so and as I'm going to look in the chat, let me tell you guys a few of the rules, because we have some people kind of getting out of control in the chat tonight. We love y'all. We want y'all to talk, but first off, there's no cussing. Please do not try to spam the chat. And Sneaker, I'm not trying to ignore the chat. I'm thanking you for all your comments. And, just know there's a lag, so sometimes it takes a minute for us to look at everything and for you to hear our responses. But into Mr. Free, he comments, "Can I join this gang?" Well, first we're
not a gang.
Yeah, we're not a gang.
This man speaks in riddles.
We are not a gang. We are a group of gentlemen that have come to talk about things affecting us in the Southern world, and more specifically as, compatriots. So, that we've caught up in the live stream. So you guys have a couple minutes to answer the question, and we'll kind of give you credit for answering correctly.
This man speaks in riddles.
What is your favorite color?
Yeah. Continue.
All right. Anybody answered?
No, sir. Everybody just seems to be having, pretty good time in the chat.
Okay, I'm gonna take a shot at it.
All right. You already know who it is.
I'm gonna say Stephen D. Lee.
No, wrong. Wrong.
Any takers?
No, sir. So if you guys want to go ahead and give the answer, you can.
It is the man, the myth, the legend, Fighting Joe Wheeler.
Oh, that's right, Joe Wheeler.
Yeah, Joe Wheeler was a congressman in the late 1800s, post-war, and President McKinley asked him if he would take charge of the volunteer cavalry that went ahead and fought in the Spanish-American War. Probably the most famous men under his command was a nearsighted, very vibrant Yankee from New York, half Yankee. His mother was actually a Southerner, and could have joined the SCV, but he never did. Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders, they were under command of Fighting Joe Wheeler, a Confederate cavalryman in the Spanish-American War. So this evening's topic of discussion, which I'm really hoping that we can get into, and Harrison, definitely please, Mr. Producer, sorry, definitely let us know if there's anybody in the chat who chirps in about some of the stuff we talk about. Is the cancel culture that's going around sweeping our nation. If you're not familiar with cancel culture, turn on the news. It's the idea that, we don't like the history of something, so it automatically needs to be removed. And before we get into this current House resolution, well, actually, let's go ahead and jump into the House resolution. Go ahead, Mr. MPS, and read the resolution for us. Oyez.
Let me just put this out there. I mean, this is just section. I'm going to read you section 442 of this bill, all right, or this House resolution 7608. It says, notwithstanding any other provision of law or policy to the contrary, within 180 days of enactment of this act, the National Park Service shall remove from display all physical Confederate commemorative works, such as statues, monuments, sculptures, memorials, and plaques as defined by National Park Service Management Policies 2006. Guys, they're literally talking about going into national parks and taking down everything that says Confederate on it. You understand that's the mass graves that are at Shiloh. That's the mass graves that are all over these battlefields. They're going to take down these monuments that states spent millions of dollars to put up. Now they're going to make the taxpayers spend millions of dollars to take them down. Why? Because you're offended? Grow up. Grow up. That's what you need to take from this. This is a crap bill. This right here is something ISIS would do. There's no doubt in my mind. You just go around and erase whatever you want to because you hurt your feelings. Jesus Christ. Grow up. It's time for Americans to start looking at what really matters in life, and that's not tearing down monuments and erasing our history. Why? It happened. It happened. It all happened. It's all been there. Most of you haven't even seen it. Why does it irritate you? Why does it hurt your feelings? You feel oppressed? Did that statue get down and oppress you? Stop being a moron.
Well, yeah, everything you said, I agree with.
Agreed.
Especially when you look at these historical monuments that are out there, it's more than just a monument to some brave men who went and fought. We can definitely use some examples later on, but they're works of art. They really are. They're beautiful sculptures. Yesterday on my way home from the retreat, I stopped at Shiloh and I stopped at the Mississippi Monument there at Ray Field. And looking up at that sculpture, that piece of art, you can actually see the pain and anguish, whether it's a Confederate monument or not. Even the federal monuments, some of them are actually pretty. Look at Vicksburg, for example. The Illinois Monument
is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it is, and it's probably the most photographed thing in Mississippi. But their monuments are work of art, and our monuments are work of art. And plus, how can you have a monument to federal soldiers if there's no Confederate soldier monument? I mean, you're just going to drive through half of the Vicksburg National Military Park or through Gettysburg and see this, and okay, well, I see the one side of this history. Where's the other side? Who were they fighting against? It's to continue the destruction of history in our nation, because eventually, and we've already seen it in, I believe it was Michigan, a couple of earlier in the 2000s, they wanted to remove a mural to federal soldiers from their state house. That's where we're heading next, is to see federal monuments to federal soldiers removed. And then eventually something else goes and something else goes until finally we have no history left. And again, as we've said in the first video, a people without a history are doomed to repeat it.
Listen, what you need to take out of this, if you're watching this, if you're seeing this right now, call your congressman. Call your congressman and tell them to vote no. This bill's already passed the House. It's going to the Senate floor. And I know a lot of y'all, Ain't watched Little Bill that danced around on the stairs back in Schoolhouse Rock? Y'all remember that?
I'm just a Bill sitting on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, maybe y'all need to watch a little bit more of that. But I'm telling you, this right here is some sneaky political BS. They do it all the time. They sneak this little crap in there. We don't read it because we're Americans and we're like, oh, well, they represent us all in the best way. Nope, they're all morons. Every single elected official in Washington, D.C. is a moron.
Except for Rand Paul.
They're all morons.
People in the chat, I've turned on follow only mode, which is a mode that only lets you, if you follow, comment. The reason is because we have rules, and someone sent a video, and to that I'm saying, I listened to it, sir, while they were talking, and I have to say it has nothing to do with our topic. We're not going to give our reactions on it if it has nothing to do with the current topic of the live stream that we're at that moment. And sir, I'm not trying to be rude. I want everybody to comment. Keep commenting, even if you're completely off topic. Like someone said, Trump 2020. Well, if you believe that, sir, congratulations. You have the right.
Yeah. And Mr. Producer, let me interject something for a second. We still live in a free society. Nobody's forcing you to be here. If you don't want to play by the rules, go to somebody else's channel. Please. We are getting into issue politics. We're not going to get into candidate politics. Yeah, I made the joke about Rand Paul a second ago, but that was a joke. They understand it was a joke. This is issue politics. This is something that is really affecting our nation at this point. And that's what we want to talk about. We don't want to get off onto, who's the next president of the United States or who, that sort of stuff. We're not going to get into that. If I offend you, sorry.
We're not a political organization, so we don't represent one candidate or the other.
Right. Exactly.
Sorry. But
yeah. I was just wondering who the ninja is. But anyway, and to get back on topic and get on what we were discussing, before the live stream starts, every week we sit together and we talk about what we plan on talking about. I play some music in the background, and we get hyped up. And sometimes I'll wear a mask of a celebrity, and we all get a laugh out of it. It's our time to get hype up and talk about the show. Earlier, I proposed this question to the chat, and I'm going to ask it now to y'all, to the guys on screen. But I also want you in the chat to think about this. All right. Everybody is in cancel culture now is saying that Southern history, which is American history, and Southern culture, which is American culture, needs to be erased. It needs to go down, needs to go away. How can we say that when at the same time there are monuments, there are military installations, and we'll get into military installations here in a second. There are certain things that go to, federal soldiers, generals, things like that. Case in point, going back on the military installations, we talked last week about Robert E. Lee and about his morality and the stuff that he did before, during, and after the war for the South. We talked about Lee and Lee being a man of his times. Now, I hate, and I rarely use that word with hate, I hate looking at somebody from the 19th century with 21st century morality and 21st century eyes on it. However, how can we in the 21st century now say that Confederate monuments and Confederate military installations need to be removed when there are actual written, documented evidences of certain federal generals committing war crimes before and after or during the war and after the war against the Southern people and against the Native American Plains tribes, and we continue to allow them to exist. Case in point, George Armstrong Custer. Custer in 1864 under the command of Phil Sheridan, rode through the Shenandoah Valley and just did a complete destruction of the valley. Sheridan said of Custer's work that if a crow flew across the valley, he would have to carry his own rations with him. In the valley at that time, there were wounded men, veterans from the war who could not fight, young boys, and old men. Nobody really to defend it. They waged war on a civilian population. They continued to do that in between Mosby's partisans and Custer. Custer began executing some of Mosby's troops. Things of that nature, happened. It was really, when you look at it and study that, everything that we would consider a war crime today, with breaking the Geneva Convention, the federal soldiers did. Fast forward 10 years, these same men did the same exact thing to the Plains Indians. They did it to the Sioux. They did it to the Blackfoot, to the name a tribe that was that little
Cheyenne.
big one. And yeah, Cheyenne. Custer and his men did it. In fact, Custer, when he split his troops for Little Bighorn, the battle that he died at, his last stand, so to speak, his goal was to drive the women and the children from one side of the village all the way to the end, and he and his men would capture them and force the other soldiers to surrender. If a modern U.S. general did that today, he would probably end up in The Hague or Fort Leavenworth or somewhere like that. Yet there's Fort Custer in Kalamazoo, Michigan. There's a monument to Custer at, monument to his troopers at Little Bighorn, but also at West Point. In this age of cancel culture, how can we not say that one side is bad and the other side is good? How can we say that when there are more atrocities on the one side than the other?
And that's true.
The question.
But let me interject for a moment. These people that are out here tearing these statues down, they don't care if it's Confederate or Union. They don't care if it's our founding fathers or not. Cancel culture is about canceling anything American. I mean, nowadays they paint any of our forefathers that fought in the Revolution, that fought in the American Civil War, that fought in any of those wars before then, they're all bad people.
Well, and of course that was a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of any monument being removed. I'm not in favor of any military installation being renamed. And indeed, you're right, Matt, because if you go when all this stuff really started back in June, or started again, June back up. There's the monument to the 54th Massachusetts in Boston, Massachusetts. Those men were, United States Colored Troops, USCTs. That's the term that they used back then to differentiate their unit. If you've seen the movie Glory, you know the story of the 54th Massachusetts. Yet somebody with either their historical ignorance or like MDS said, their lack of concern for anything historical, went and vandalized that monument. I mean, what's the point of that? Which I'm looking at the chat as well, Mr. Producer. And you did hit the nail on the head with that, as Krabby PL is saying.
But the funny thing is, when they all started this, they said that we need to move these into museum or national parks, and just like they always do, as soon as they got what they wanted at some states, what are they doing now? They're trying to take them out of national parks, museums. They don't care about history. They just want to destroy it because it hurts their feelings. They don't like it, makes them uncomfortable, whatever false thing they're going to tell you.
Yeah, and I don't think it's so much as it hurts their feeling as much as it destroys, to steal a term from what we've talked about, reclaiming it destroys their narrative. Yeah. Again, to quote Karl Marx, people without a history are easily persuaded.
Yeah.
So if we are to, if our history is destroyed and our cultural identity as a people, and I'm talking about the American people, if it is completely erased, then then the powers that be that want a major change, that I personally do not believe in, speaking on behalf of myself, that's their first step is to erase it and make us forget it, so that our modern history is our only history. But even then, how, in 50 years from now, what's to say that our modern history, our current history that we're living now, isn't something that's erased? If our institutional memory, so to speak, only go back 5 years, and then continues to get erased, go back another 5 years, continue to get erased. To quote a good friend of ours, it is neo-Bolshevikism. It is something just like what happened in communist Russia. Stalin was the man who invented Photoshop. He'd get mad at somebody and have them offed, and then paint it out of the picture. And then when somebody
This
says,
is
well,
why you study history, ladies and gentlemen. You learn things like this.
Yeah. Then they'll say, well, wasn't so-and-so with you here? No, that man never existed. Yeah, he did. No, he never existed. And if you said he existed one more time, you stopped existing. But the cancel culture, it is doing something to really hurt us, and especially with as we mentioned, these are everything we're talking about now are federal entities. Most of the military parks, I believe, are like Gettysburg, Shiloh, Vicksburg, Chickamauga, Corinth. I'm trying to name. Yeah. I'm trying to, most of the war between the states military parks out there. Now, there are some that are state owned, like Port Hudson, like Fort Pillow. Are Fort Henry and Donaldson owned by the National Park Service?
Yes, Fort Donaldson is National Park.
Yeah, so they're owned by Fort Sumter, Appomattox, are owned by the National Park Service. And with the federal government coming in and doing this, that's most of the national parks suddenly poof, sank, gone.
I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, Fort Donaldson's a Confederate fort. They would literally have to wipe it off the map.
Yeah, and they would if it wasn't for the fact that that's where Butcher Grant got his first victory.
Yeah.
But that's essentially what they want is to wipe everything off the map. But as a taxpayer, especially seeing how last week was pay week, and I saw how much of my money went to the federal government. As a taxpayer, I'm personally offended that they're going to take, if this House resolution is passed by the Senate with that in it. That's my tax money that could be used to fixing the infrastructure of this nation. That could be used to fund the military, or could be used for actually it could be better spent by me and left in my paycheck. Yeah, it really is. Where I think I know how I prefer to spend that money than some bureaucrat in the federal government. To suddenly have to, okay, well, we're going to take down this monument. We're going to take down this monument. Monuments that literally take an act of Congress to get put up. For example, Mississippi, we just put up a monument at Shiloh National Military Park a couple years ago that cost over, I think it was $250,000. And now that monument can be gone.
Gorgeous piece of art too. Absolutely, one of the most beautiful monuments I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it is the only monument out there with a Hardee flag on it. Take that. Indeed, Orkeezy, yeet indeed.
I'm going to have to cut you guys off. I'm sorry. There's a lot of inappropriate things going in the chat right now. A lot of inappropriate things. I've turned it back on follows only mode.
There's one person on here. I think you see him.
I see him. I'm about to kick him. I'm going to kick at least 3 people. We do not take racial slurs. We do not take we just don't take that here. There would be no cussing in the chat as well. GD is not acceptable.
Yeah.
Guys, now.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. So, to continue on for a second, where I was going with that, the monuments, in the national parks are somewhere, that really doesn't need to be canceled. A monument anywhere to anybody. I personally have proposed that, in Mississippi that Mississippi has the only, and here's a little bit of trivia for you, has the only monument dedicated to black men who fought in the Confederacy. They were part of a unit called Harvey Scouts. Those men, the brief history of it is a guy who became a rich man after the war, loved the men who went with them, the men of, the former slaves, the men of color who went with them off to war, loved them so much that he came home and erected a monument to them out of his back pocket. Cancel culture would remove that monument, the only monument to black Confederate soldiers. That's not right. Renaming military installations, and I know MDS is going to get on the soapbox with this here in a second. It's not right, because not only are you disrespecting the men who the installations are named after, you're also disrespecting the men who left that area and went off to war. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, MDS, but there are guys out there who take pride that they went to Fort Lost in the Wood, Missouri for training, or, the 101st Airborne, are they in Benning or Bragg?
101st is at Fort Campbell.
Who am I thinking of at Fort Benning?
82nd.
82nd. Thank you. Those guys in the 82nd they're proud that they went to Fort Bragg. Just like how the Marines are proud that they went to Parris Island.
It is. It's a badge of honor. It definitely is.
Exactly. So to take the name of those installations away is to strike the history of those combat units and to disrespect those veterans who have that thread in common. Because how many, MDS, you're a veteran. How many times have you asked somebody, well, where did you do your basic training? Where did you, so you went to jump school there, all that stuff.
It's one of the first things you talk to when you meet another veteran. Fort Benning, to me, Fort Benning just means 6 weeks of absolute hell that I went through training to become a soldier. I mean, that's the home of the infantry. Fort Benning, I was stationed, I'll tell you what, I was stationed at Fort Benning, I was stationed at Fort Lee, Virginia, and I was stationed at Fort Gordon, Georgia. Those three, and I was also at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which is named after a Union soldier, or a Union general. But the thing is, I mean, you can change the name to Cupcake Land for all I care. To me, it'll always be Fort Benning. To the thousands upon thousands of soldiers that have gone through those doors, it's Fort Benning, man. It will always be Fort Benning. I think one of the biggest issues is really, how many of these people out there really knew that these were named after Confederate generals before? Honestly, I don't think Fort Benning or Fort Lee or Fort Gordon, I don't think any of them were ever synonymous with, they became synonymous for what they're for now. Those names, Benning to me means home of the infantry. Gordon, that's home of the Signal Corps. These are all, that's what makes those names anymore, not, and I love it because I know that they're Southern Confederate generals, and that's awesome. But most of these people didn't know it. Most of the soldiers that I went to basic training with, or AIT or any of those places, they didn't know who it was named after either.
Yeah, and then there are certain military units out there that do have an esprit de corps that comes with, not only those names, but I remember, newsflash, in case you didn't know, in 2005, we in Mississippi had a little bitty storm that came and hit our Gulf Coast called Katrina.
Yeah.
And not only was the Mississippi National Guard mobilized, but we had other, eventually National Guard units come down and help with the response. The Mississippi Division, SCV, we own Beauvoir, the last home of President Jefferson Davis. It was hurt during the storm. several of our members went down there to volunteer to help clean up. But when they were going down there, they all had to roll through a roadblock from the Virginia National Guard. And one of the guys was talking to, I believe the story goes, he was actually talking to a black guy, in his ACUs out there, standing guard, standing, on the roadblock, making sure that looters weren't coming in. And, he thanked him. He brought him a bottle of water, everything like that. And anyway, they began talking about military history. And anyway, we said, well, if you like military history, you know what house that is right there. And he said, yeah, it's Beauvoir, Jeff Davis's house, but check out this. And he showed over his sleeve patch. And on his sleeve patch was the patch for the Stonewall Brigade. They're descended from a Confederate unit, Stonewall Jackson's unit. With that, there's, they have that esprit de corps in there. How many people out there have seen the movie, The Crimson Tide with, I think it's Denzel Washington and,
Gene Hackman.
Yeah. And, they're talking about, how proud they are in Alabama, and they even all, go Bama, roll Tide. Little SEC joke for those in the chat. But, there are ships named after Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee and Chancellorsville and this, that, and the other. And the guys on those ships, I've talked to Navy veterans. They're proud to be serving on the USS Stonewall Jackson or the USS Robert E. Lee, just like there are guys who are proud to serve on the Theodore Roosevelt or the flight carrier Reagan, or anything like that. To cancel all of this not only disrespects, again, and I'll hold this, I'll say this forever. It not only disrespects the men that it was named after, but it disrespects the men who have served and have taken that name on their own.
Yeah, I agree. It means so much more than just a Confederate general now. It has this awe to it. I mean, any soldier will tell you that there's a competition between where you go to basic training, like Fort Benning. Fort Benning's supposed to be the hardest because it's home of the infantry. And then you got old relaxing Jackson in South Carolina, what we called it. I mean, but everybody's got their little ribbon things that they do. We rib each other back and forth. Oh, you went to Jackson, or you went to Leonard Wood, or you went to Benning. But, I mean, it's just, it makes no sense to change stuff. I mean, what? Why? Do we? I don't think the biggest problem is we don't really realize how much this cancel culture is going to cost us as taxpayers. That's a big thing. Every time they take this down, where do you think they get that money from? Oh, yeah, I'm really hurt by this. Yeah. It's by people like you, me, and everybody watching this that pays taxes that come out of your job, out of your paycheck every month or every week. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that you would want – our infrastructure is falling apart. I mean, have you guys looked at some of the bridges? I've crossed some bridges on the roads, and I thought, well, this could be the last time I cross this bridge.
Yeah.
But yet we'd rather spend our tax money on stupid things like, well, it hurts some people's feelings, and they're oppressed by a big statue. So we need to come up with $1 million of your tax money so we can go take this statue down. I mean, look at Richmond. They've taken all those statues down. Has it improved anything in Richmond? Nope.
No, same in South Carolina. I mean, it was supposed to become, the perfect place to live after they took the flag off the State House. But things progressively, and I'm talking about off of the dome. In the early 2000s, it was supposed to become. It was supposed to become a utopia to live in. But taking it off the dome didn't make South Carolina better. Didn't make South Carolina worse. It made South Carolina remain as South Carolina. This cancel culture really isn't going to do anything.
Hey man, are we gonna have to change the names of the original 13 colonies? Because all of them had slaves in it.
Yeah.
The original 13 colonies, yeah, man. I get so named after kings and queens that were good with slavery.
Yeah. Oh, the Virginia named after the Virgin Queen, Queen Mary. Queen Mary, or not Queen Mary, excuse me, Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth did some stuff to Catholics in her day, because she restored Protestantism as the official religion of England. That that most people today would consider barbarous. I think she had her cousin beheaded. Just all sorts of stuff. When are we going to stop? I've made this correlation and joke. The producer has the state flag of Mississippi behind him with the canton being the canton. My Revolutionary War ancestors, they fought against the British. My Irish ancestors were, they were handed bad stuff by the British. My Scottish ancestors, were treated rough by the British. My War of 1812 ancestors were treated tough by the British. The British burned Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, burn it down. Yet meanwhile, Hawaii has the Union Jack in their state flag in their canton. The English were part of the African slave trade, but yet there's no call for that yet. But is Hawaii state flag next?
That's the thing. Where does it stop? I mean, you start this snowball, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I mean, before you know it, we'll be living in. People ask you what state you live in, and you have to give them a number. I live in state number 3.
Yeah, I live in District 13.
Yeah, we're really headed towards that. Yeah.
But cancel culture is not just affecting us in the federal government or the state governments, but it's also affecting, of course, in our schools and our education system. The producer, I believe he mentioned it in the first episode. He's a college student, and his university has been a front page news maker because of cancel culture. But and I'm going to let him talk about it because he goes there, he lives it every single day. But as a former follower of that school's athletic program, I highly doubt that they're going to suddenly they're going to beat Bama, they're going to beat LSU and win the SEC championship this year. I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
I highly doubt that it's going to really. I believe enrollment is down, and that may be due to COVID, but still, I don't believe that the cancel culture is going to really bring people into the university. I think it's actually going to hurt them worse. And without further ado, because I need a glass or a swig of tea, producer, take it over.
Well, I'll take it over. First thing I'll say first and get this out of the way. Chat has been cleared. You must respect the rules or get banned automatically. There will be it's going to be harsh judgment if you mess up. If lucky, you might get one warning from me. But we're not going to take what just happened in the chat. But, on cancel culture, going back to topic, fun saying in the SCV that sometimes, we'll get off topic just for a smidge. But, I've seen this, affect students' lives. And, I've seen it affect universities. Like, for example, my university, I would consider a great school. And, it was my dream school. And I can remember growing up there. And then when I got up there, I was expecting all this stuff, the school's traditions, its values, how it was going to affect my life, and it's all gone. I don't even know how we could differ it from any other university that just opened up. Let's be honest here, that all their traditions, the stuff they've been building since, when was it founded?
1848.
1848, washed away. Might as well be founded in 2020. Its reputation, everything is. I don't understand it. I don't get it, and all I've seen is just cancel culture affect the students as well. I've seen kids, some of them, posted stupid things and should have faced some repercussions. Others, just stood up for history or stood up for a monument. I've seen kids get in trouble for, standing up for the monument. What happened to them? They got bullied out of school. Their friends, wouldn't talk to them. They don't want to be associated with them. And it was I've seen it happen to some kids, bright futures get kicked out of college because of this. And, where does it end? Where do we say, okay, we've cleared everything up. Everybody can look at us and we are nice and pretty. And, there's no point where it stops.
Somebody's always going to be offended by something. It doesn't matter what you say or what you do. Somebody's always going to be offended.
But yeah,
my parents taught me this little thing when I was a kid. It said, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me." We've become a society where words hurt, and I get it. Some words are they do hurt, but sometimes you just got to be like,
yeah,
damn.
And, to make matters worse, they act like this is going to solve problems, that erasing history and cultures it's going to make everything better. Take my state flag behind me here. Since we've taken it down, murder is up in Jackson. I thought it was supposed to solve that. We can go back to cancel culture on schools. My school's recruitment is down. Revenue is down. This is like we're cutting faculty, staff, the people who keep the campus beautiful, and we're cutting all this down. We're having to scale back. And yes, a good number of that's going to be dealt to COVID, but who are you supposed to appeal to all this cancel culture?
Yeah, and to piggyback off a second, talking about schools and everything, and talking about the Mississippi flag because it's something very important to us, at least the producer and I. When you look at what's going on in Jackson right now, the legislature was just called back to Jackson. They were supposed to be done, to redo a bill to give it to the governor so that the promises they made to increase teacher pay in Mississippi, which we need because the higher paid teacher, the better teacher we get in, in theory, the higher that we can climb, on the educational scale, if not in the Southeast, but hopefully in the nation. But yet they spent a week in Jackson or 2 weeks in Jackson this past legislative session talking about our flag. Meanwhile, when they should have been focusing on, paying teachers or paying for the industry, or not the industry, but the government. I can't believe I want to say this, but the government entity that regulates offshore fishing, which is a huge part of Mississippi's economy. Instead of focusing on making sure that was funded, they focused on changing the state flag. There's no reason for that. And just for cancel culture, now that they're back in Jackson, they're wasting more of our taxpayers' money, so they can get their per diem every single day that they're in session. And there's no guarantee that the governor's not going to veto this upcoming legislation, that whatever they come out with in the swamp up there, So it's a real waste of our money and everything like that. But to get off the financial aspect of it, again, we ask, where's it going to stop? Where is it going to stop? What about the Jayhawk, and talking about the universities, here's a question for the chat, if anybody's still watching, or for us. How do we know, do y'all know where the term Crimson Tide comes from?
I don't.
Well, the way I heard the story told from my late father, and I believe it, the South Carolina General Bernard B. from South Carolina, same man who gave Jackson his nickname. He was a very poetic sort, because he said, "Look, men, there's Jackson standing like a stone wall." Well, a couple minutes before he said that, he said, "Look, men, here come the Alabamians flowing like a crimson tide at the Battle of First Manassas." The name stuck. Who knows where LSU's nickname came from? The Fighting Tigers.
Oh, I do. I know where that one came from.
Yeah.
That was a Confederate
unit. Or is LSU going to have to change their name because of Lee's Tigers? And also, here's another fun fact: Lee's Tigers, but also look at the mascot of the Washington Artillery. Another unit that traces its roots back to actually before the war. but fought for the Confederacy. Their mascot was a tiger. Arkansas, not really. What about the Tennessee Volunteers?
Yeah.
The Volunteers got their nickname because they volunteered to fight in the Creek Indian Wars. Are they going to have to change their name? What about the Oklahoma Sooners? The Sooners, are they going to have to change their name? Because the Sooners were settlers that moved out to Oklahoma, took lands that belonged to the original indigenous people.
Sooners actually were the people that the land grant that the government had, they went before the actual race started and set up places, made it look like they did. So they're actually even worse than the people that came over there and stole their land. They stole it from other people before they got there.
What about the Virginia Cavaliers?
Oh yeah, man. That's a good one.
People don't think about that. Come on, let's think of some other colleges.
Oh gosh.
Oregon. There are some people out there who are afraid of ducks.
Nobody's afraid of
ducks offend some people.
Ducks can't offend people.
Oregon offends me. The whole state. Sorry if there's anybody watching from Oregon, but your state offends me.
What are the MSU, not Mississippi State University, but Michigan State University?
The
Spartans. Look at that. That was a military culture that literally fought people and enslaved them in ancient Greece.
Well, I would say Syracuse, but they already changed theirs.
I thought they were oranges.
They were the Orange Men, they had a Native American, and then they changed it. Now it's just a giant orange.
Oh, well, speaking on that, Washington Redskins.
You mean the Washington football team?
Yeah, that's their official name.
Their official name is the Washington football team. Ladies and gentlemen of cancel culture, you've done it. You have done it.
I think
you now have the Washington football team.
About the only sports names that we could probably keep now is the minor league team in Huntsville. They're the Trash Pandas.
Well, the Savannah's the Savannah Bananas.
Yeah. Oh well, that could actually that could be taken as something else though.
Sure. What if you're allergic to bananas?
Yeah, like that could offend you if you're allergic to bananas. Yeah. If your name rhymes with banana, who knows?
Well, there was an episode of King of the Hill where Con Supernusumphone was called a banana.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, so I mean that could be offensive.
Let's think about a place like Florida State, Seminoles. The Seminole tribe, if I'm not mistaken, gives them, the right to do this.
Yeah, they actually really like it. They're behind it.
But
Mississippi College.
After that.
Yeah, Mississippi College, the Choctaws. The Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians actually wrote a letter in the 1990s when all this cancel culture really started, saying that they were proud that Mississippi College was calling themselves the Choctaws. So, I mean, where the question is, and the question's for the chat, where do we draw the line?
Yeah, and that's the biggest question out of all. I mean, really, where is that line? Where do we stop if we keep going? I mean, you got to admit, the Confederate stuff is low-hanging fruit. It's easy picking.
It's the easiest one they could take. Yeah,
it's absolutely easy. Picking on people in the South is also easy. Oh, well, they talk with a Southern accent, so they must be a bunch of damn rednecks.
Yeah.
I can't help the way I talk, and I'm not changing the way I talk. That's the way I was raised. It's where I grew up. It's the region I'm from. Let me tell you something. If I went through 20 years in the military and didn't lose my Southern accent, it's there forever.
Amen.
Yeah. And then, with the shocking development of course, I was on vacation when all this stuff kind of started. But, with taking monuments from national parks, museums, et cetera, and, where do we draw the line? It's just like, where do you put them? Where do you even? They don't care. That's the thing.
What, here's the thing. If the national parks want to do this, then give it to the state. Let the states run them. I don't see why the states couldn't do it. They got people from their state anyway. We won't have to worry about national park federal rangers down there. We could have state rangers there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Grand Gulf National or Grand Gulf Military Park is a state agency in Mississippi, and it's where Grant first tried to cross over into Mississippi during his Vicksburg campaign. But I'm noticing at the time that we're getting into the 45-minute mark or somewhere around there. So the next question is we've asked where do we stop. But here's the next question I want to pose, and I think I already know my answer for it. How can somebody in the chat, if they want to, if they want to get to a stopping point, where do we go? Where do they go to stop this cancel culture? And I'll go ahead and give my answer. If you are a proud Southerner, if you are a proud Mississippian, Tennessean, Louisianan, Arkansan, Texan, Georgian, Floridian, South Carolinian, North Carolinian, Virginia, West Virginian. If you're a proud American, the first thing that you can do is learn your history. Learn your history. Do research other than just what you learned in a high school textbook. Read something other than just pop history. Go to those firsthand sources. I'm looking at a 16-volume set of books that was written, originally published in the 1890s and written by the veterans themselves. Go to those firsthand sources and learn your history there. Thing number 2, join an organization that is standing up and taking a fight, to end this cancel culture, like the Sons of Confederate Veterans. Go back to our first episode, and I'll hit on our high points. We've been around since 1896. This is our last reunion was the 125th reunion. Yeah. So we've been around for a while. We know how to fight. We know what fight is going on, and we know how to fight. Think about joining one of us. If you're a lady, think about joining the UDC or the OCR. If you're you don't have a drop of Southern blood in you, you can join the Friends of the SCV. Or join the SUVCW, Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War. They are actually a friendly organization to us because they realize with this cancel culture, if our Confederate history is gone, their ancestors' history is next. Think about that.
I know a lot of guys that are SCV and UCV that.
They're SOBs, sons of both.
Yeah.
That's our friendly nickname for them. We are a 501c3, non-political, non-profit, non-racial organization. We actually have over the past 20 years passed several resolutions condemning those people who take our history, the Confederate history, the Southern history, and the American history, and distort it for their perverted uses in the world. Look at us. Look at those other organizations we've mentioned. But like I said, learn your history, and for too long we've been the silent majority in this nation. If you're tired of it, it's time to stand up. When I say we're not political, we cannot endorse a political party or a political candidate, but we can endorse ideas. And if you are tired of seeing American history and American culture being destroyed, find out how your congressman or your senator, or I don't know, the people who are running for the highest office in the land, how they feel and how they vote, and let that be your determining factor on how you cast your ballot. And with that, I yield the floor.
Call your senator. Call your congressman. Call your congressman. This bill has got to be stopped. This is the first step in erasing our history. And let me tell you who's on the front lines. The SCV is on the front lines. They are that historical organization. We're not just protecting Confederate monuments anymore. We're protecting American monuments to everybody. When we start taking them out of national parks, man, that's a slippery slope, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you now, that's a ball that will get started and it will just keep rolling until listen, before you know it, they're going to be going after the monuments in D.C. I mean, what's next? They're going to tear down the Washington Monument? This has got to stop. It's got to stop.
Let me correct, or let me disagree with you on one thing. It's not a slippery slope. A slippery slope is something slow. This is going to be cancel culture coming at us like a bat out of hell. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I take that. That's the best way to put it. We're in a bad way right now, and the only way that we're going to get through this is we need you to join. We need you to join up with the SCV. Yeah, we need you to help us, man. We need everybody's help. Yeah, join as a member, join as a friend. I know I said I was going to yield the floor, and I will yield it again.
That's okay. Keep going, brother.
But we're in a fight for America's soul.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to sound dramatic. I hate to make that sound like it's a I'm not trying to use a hyperbole on it, but back during World War II, I believe Winston Churchill said, "So goes America, so goes England, so goes Western culture. So goes American history, so goes America, so goes Western culture, so goes everything that makes us." A somewhat united people with a common history and everything like that. If we lose this fight, the ideas that were instilled in 1861 and 1776 will be gone off this continent. Then the cause is really lost. And now I yield the floor.
All right, and with that,
go ahead, man. Let's call it.
I've put some stuff in the chat for you guys to look at. Of course, it's SCV's website, Make Dixie Great Again's website. Join the SCV, join friends of the SCV. Get involved today, because let's be honest, if you don't join today, as GCB said, we're in a fight for America's soul, and if you don't, you can't complain about it when we lose everything we have with freedom of speech.
Let me put it this way. This is a battle we cannot afford to lose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you're hesitant and you're thinking about it, think about this. Our Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief often says this: if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? If you're not going to do it, if you're sitting on the fence thinking, I'll let somebody else fight this fight, there may not be somebody else to fight the fight for you. And then the next thing you know, because you didn't want to step up, everything's gone. And if not now, when? Tomorrow? There's only so many tomorrows. And as the Southern Baptist preachers say, when they're doing the altar call, we're not promised tomorrow. We're not, we're on a timetable. We're on a timeline. The clock is ticking. The Senate is going to have to vote on this. I mean, they may put it to some committee, that is a do nothing committee, and it doesn't come out of committee, and the swamp continues on as usual in DC.
Yeah.
However, there is the chance that it'll come out of committee. There is the chance that it'll be part of a bill that goes to the president's desk, or a resolution that allows the National Park Service or the Department of the Interior to do away with this stuff.
Fight today. There is no tomorrow if you just stand around waiting for someone else to do it.
Yeah. So, closing thoughts. Any closing thoughts from anyone?
I guess the only closing thoughts I have is, please stand up, please fight. If this can get through the House and go to the Senate, this is a very real thing. Do not take this lightly. And with that, as my boss has said, I yield the floor.
Gentlemen, it's always great to get with you and talk once a week. I enjoy this. I look forward to it. People that are watching, I can't tell you how important it is. HR Bill 7608. Vote no. call your congressman, tell him to vote no. I'll see y'all next week. I yield the floor.
Yeah. So yeah, next week we'll go live around the same time. Trying to remember what our topic is for next week. Trying to scroll back up to the pictures, or not the picture, but the schedule. I think next week is supposed to be on one of my favorite generals. Let me find my list of topics really quickly.
While GCB is doing that, hopefully, the streams will. Last stream we had a technical difficulty, but I've sorted everything out, and hope everything's running smoothly for everybody. Things should be better, especially next week as I move back into my house, and I have a lot better Wi-Fi than where I am right now. So
one more thing for everybody else in the chat. Just to go through. Do want to say that we're potentially going to be starting a private Discord server. So that during the week, as we're announcing the topic for the next week, we can talk about it to those who'd be interested. We're working on that, looking at doing that. More information will come out. We have done cancel culture, and that means that next week on 8/17, next Monday, we're going to talk about the Stonewall of the West.
Ooh, Patrick Claiborne.
Yes, sir. Highest ranking Irish general. Really great man. Some stuff that a hero that people really don't know about. So get used to it. Y'all begin looking in. Those in the people who are watching who want to, really chime in on the chat on things that we're talking about. We're going to talk about him. And then the week after that, on the 24th, I think we're going to do something special. Harrison, Mr. Producer, have you gotten your cornbread costume ready yet?
I have not. We're not doing that one.
Yes, we are.
You need to be ready for the 24th, because we're gonna. If you've seen the show The Big Bang Theory, I think on the 24th it'll be a good episode to do Fun with Flags.
Fun with Flags.
Flags will be fun.
And then the final day of August to round us up. I'll take a vote really quickly. The 31st, do y'all want to do Sam Davis, or do y'all want to do a surprise episode?
Do a surprise episode.
All right. So the next week is Patrick Claiborne. Those in the chat who are still watching, y'all read about him some, other than just his Wikipedia page. Week after that will be some different flags used by the Confederacy, and on the 31st we'll have a special episode for y'all. So as usual, guys, y'all have a great week, and please remember, no Fumar in the elevator.
No Fumar in the elevator. Good night, gentlemen.
Fumar in the elevator.